And because it made me so sick,
Right.
it was doubly terrifying. It wasn't just that I lost a baby. I lost a baby and then had a cancer scare and then had like medical issues, had to pay the bills, but also I was like deathly ill.
It's not just a miscarriage, it's all the crap that can happen after a miscarriage.
I wanted to see you be as sad as I was, and you just weren't. And I didn't know why.
Because of family of origin stuff, I literally didn't know what to do. So sometimes that ends up not doing anything, right? Which is the absolute worst thing that you could do.
And not let them see my sadness around it. And just trying to like hold on. Just trying to be like, I have to survive this, and I don't know how, and I didn't know it would hurt this bad, and I didn't think I would. I just didn't even think about it. It's not even that I didn't think I would be that sad. I didn't think it would happen.
Right.
Hello, and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
And my name is Seth. Hello.
And today we are going to do a follow-up to the bonus episode we released about miscarriage.
Right.
But before we do that, we want to read the review of the day, which is from
All right. Clark L.
Stevens.
5 stars.
Good stuff, it says.
All right. I like this podcast because it takes a realistic look at marriage that is honest with the struggles while maintaining devotion to each other.
Love it. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Clark L. Stevens.
That's right. L. Stevens, yes.
For your review. If you haven't rated or reviewed the podcast yet and you enjoy it as well, please go ahead and do that right now. It's super helpful for us, helps people find us, and we like it. And,
okay, well, I guess we can't see who the 600th review would be, but it'd be cool to figure that out and send them a sticker. So if you're the 600th reviewer, we'll try to figure it out and send you a free AOM podcast sticker for your car. And please remember to rate and review the show. It puts us up and up and up in the reviews, in the ratings rather, and we get noticed more, and that really helps.
It puts us up and up and up.
Up and up. It's like climbing the mountain.
Say it.
The pyramid of podcasts.
Anyway, so we released our bonus episode last week with Elizabeth Williams and Elizabeth Brawler. They were talking about Elizabeth Brawler's experience with miscarriage, and we got a lot of feedback on that episode. One person commented that they wished we had they could just hear more about it, basically, and wanted to know our experience because we do have an experience with miscarriage, and just sort of talking about it in a different light. Like Elizabeth Brawler is super positive and has like a really kind of like prayerful attitude, which is not how I felt during miscarriage. So
you didn't feel like praying or
no? Well, we'll talk about that more. But then there was also another comment where a listener was saying it just felt so good to have someone to like have that kind of like, oh, someone else has gone through this and they felt what I felt, and because it is a really weird thing we don't talk about very often at all. And then when we do talk about miscarriage, it's oftentimes it's very clinical. What? I thought you were looking at something. But it's oftentimes very clinical. It's sort of like removed from emotion, or it's downplayed. If you're gonna have a miscarriage, like if you know you're gonna have a miscarriage, people don't tell you, I think, kind of in an accurate way, maybe, what the experience is like. Yeah. So we just wanted to do a follow-up. We thought it was valuable, and we got
also a male perspective, I believe. There were a couple of men who also have experienced miscarriages with their partner, and what is that like from the male
and
side?
How can the husband be helpful, or how can the husband also heal? It's not just a thing that afflicts women. That's right. It's a hard on everyone.
And miscarriages are actually very common. I think that probably 80% of people who have had kids also have had miscarriages at some point in their life. I remember my mom had one. My best friend's mom had one. Our friends, many of our friends have had them. Of course, you had one. And it is very common, and it's not something that we talk about. However, if it's so common, let's talk about it, and let's share the support and share the grieving and take the load off of, that individual couple's or mom's or dad's shoulders. And help out.
So just going back, I wanted to talk about what our miscarriage experience was like and kind of just walk you through that story style. So we had so we had Mariner and Tuff, our first two kids, and they were 15 months apart. So they're really close together. And I think Mariner was like 4 and Tuff was 3.
Right. And so what would that make it, like in 2011 or 2012 or so?
I think it was like 2010, 11. Okay. I think. I can't ever remember the dates because everyone's birthdays get confusing to me. Yeah. But so I found out that I was pregnant and was super excited. Like it was sooner than we had kind of planned, but it was like, oh, whatever. Like we're having kids. No big deal.
Right.
And all excited, and went in for like they found the heartbeat, all that jazz, like you have your, take the tests and it's all good.
Yeah.
And then I started to bleed, and this was probably at like 10 weeks. And I was, just like I felt crampy and weird. I'm like, this is not normal. I've not had this in any of my pregnancies.
Yeah.
And so I went in, and this is really weird because I was like really shocked. I drove myself to the doctor's office, had set up an appointment, went inside, and they did an ultrasound. And the ultrasound technician was like, and granted, she was very young, so I have to give her that. But she was like, yeah, we can't find a heartbeat. And, basically said, the size of the fetus stopped developing at 6 weeks, and you're supposed to be 10 weeks along. So the baby is much, much smaller, and there's no heartbeat. It's already dead.
Right.
And then she took the little strip of images, sonogram images or whatever they are, and threw them in the trash.
Oh, wow.
And she goes, oh, did you want those?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. Like it was just this weird moment of like, this lady does not care. That she's just telling me like, okay, in a few days you're going to experience this horrendous loss.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw your baby's pictures in the garbage.
Well, maybe it wasn't that she didn't care.
I don't think she did it on purpose, and I don't think there was anything whatever. But that was really hard. So if you're a mom or you have an experience similar to that, it was heartbreaking to me.
It wasn't.
It was like very meta. Did you want this? Did I want that pregnancy?
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right? Like we had already named the baby. We had already told everybody, even if it was a boy or a girl, we were going to name it June.
Yeah.
Like no matter what the gender. And so it was just this weird moment of like, it was sort of the first, like it was devastating realizing, oh, like my baby doesn't have a heartbeat. And then, oh, she just threw the picture of the baby in the trash. Like, this is really sad. And I remember I had to tell people, so we had already told people that I was pregnant, which I know you're not like technically supposed to do, but was our third kid. We didn't think anything would happen. Right. So I had already told like my work. I had already told our family. And it's really weird to tell people that you lost a baby when you don't even look pregnant yet. Like there's a weird kind of, I remember one coworker in particular, like didn't know what I was saying, and she tried to make it a joke. Like she tried to make it into something funny because it was making her uncomfortable. And I'm like, no, like I'm miscarrying. Like because if you haven't gone through it, you don't know what that means. I think you don't know what the process of miscarriage itself is like. And so you just think, what do you mean you're miscarrying? Like you're pregnant or you're not, but that's really not how it works.
Yeah. But then there's a whole biological process.
Yeah. It takes time. And so, that was another weird thing, having to tell people that we lost the baby.
Yeah.
While one, not looking pregnant, and then two, them being like, I don't know what you mean. That was really weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, especially in work settings.
And especially on top of the whole, us having to process, oh, we just lost. Mm-hmm. We lost something.
Yeah. Yeah. And the kids already knew, everyone, like our whole family knew. Yeah. So that was its own thing.
I think from a guy's perspective, obviously that time is a blur to me. It honestly is a blur. And also we weren't in the best spot in our marriage.
No.
Either.
Yeah. Relationship wise, we were really in a bad spot.
We were really in a bad spot. And it was literally just kind of, not everything I could do to hold on. It wasn't like that, but there were some things that Melanie and I needed to work out. So this paired with that was just another layer of, anxiety producing stress, and I honestly don't remember a lot, and it's not on purpose. It's I don't remember a lot. I do remember not knowing what to do. How do I comfort my wife? What is going on biologically? How bad does it hurt? Does it hurt? And of course I could ask her these questions, but I could not relate on just I'm a male. I can't, I don't have that body. Right. And so that part, how about this? I wish that I would have done a lot more research on my own. Just what does a body do when it miscarries, and what is this, and what can I expect, and really have some biological information, and then also a lot of psycho education around that. I haven't had clients, though that hasn't been topics of sessions, because mostly I at the time would see like 18-year-olds, so that wasn't a thing, that wasn't a topic of therapy, so I didn't know a lot about it. I do remember feeling just I don't know what to do here. How can I be sympathetic and support? And as a husband in that, that's my advice. Go do some research on it. Get in some online chat rooms of like, husbands, how can you support your wives when they are miscarrying? What are you feeling around grief? Especially if this was a first child kind of thing, because of the anticipation and all that. I imagine that would be much harder for couples who have miscarried their first pregnancy, because there's it's not like we're not excited for our third kid. Of course, we're just as excited. However, but we know a little bit more, like hospitals and babies and stuff like that. And it's hard all around. And I think the male, what am I trying to say? Speaking about miscarriage from a male perspective is, rightly so, is much less talked about. Right.
Yeah. And I think that, I wish that also, that like, because how I felt at the time, like I said, Mariner and Tough were 3 and 4. So that's a very hard, that's a job. That's a full-time job, just being a mother to a 3 and a 4-year-old. And you worked a lot and were gone a lot. And, so just the, okay, so let's back up a little bit and talk more just about the process itself of miscarriage, and because that story didn't end there in our journey. There was this sort of gap where I didn't want to tell Seth physically what was going on, because it was embarrassing. Like, it's embarrassing and weird. And, and I just didn't want him to know. And but I had 2 little kids, and I was at home, and I couldn't ignore them, and I was like actively miscarrying and bleeding and in pain, and it hurts. Like, I don't think it hurts everyone the same, obviously, but it's really painful, and like the kind of like deep, like it's not like a cramp. It's not exactly like that. It feels like your guts are being ripped out, and I had to like keep the kids out of the bathroom. I know that sounds gross, but it's the truth of it. Like, I had little kids, and they would knock on the door, and they'd unlock the door because our house is old and you can. And so like there was this whole mental thing of like, I feel gross to my husband. I don't want to be like around Seth in a weird way. I'm trying to hide this from Seth in a weird way. I'm trying to hide this from my sons and not let them see my like sadness around it. And just trying to like hold on, trying to be like, I have to survive this, and I don't know how, and I didn't know it would hurt this bad, and I didn't think I would, I just didn't even think about it. It's not even that I didn't think I would be that sad. I didn't think it would happen. Right. And so I didn't think to feel anything, right? Other than just, what am I doing in this moment?
Or how you're reacting to, you're just
reacting. I was just
trying
reacting,
to make things
like
work.
Going through and like surviving is how I felt. But but the process was like, for me, was really long. Like, I bled a lot for a long time. Yeah. And I didn't want to go and have a DNC, because that to me just seemed scary. And do you know what a DNC is?
I do. I don't know what that stands for, but I know what it is.
It's a weird name, but it's like when they actually go in and like suck everything out, and that I think it hurts really bad. It can cause damage, I think. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so
scarring too.
Yeah. So I said, I'm going to just do everything naturally. And I think it'll be okay. And, like literally almost, I think it was, let's see, because I miscarried on Halloween. After we were trick-or-treating, we came home and I miscarried, and but I knew I was going to. But the on November something, like into December, I got an infection. I got sick. I got really sick, and I like couldn't. My abdomen was like swollen and it was horrifically painful. I couldn't stand up. Like I couldn't straighten my body up. And what had happened was, because I didn't get a D&C, there was like tissue in my uterus that got infected. And I had no idea what to anticipate or anything. I just didn't know what I didn't know.
So then there's even the other really, really big biological implications that we had to deal with after the miscarriage.
Yeah. And so, but like not only was I'm like really sad and trying to process like losing a baby and never naming a baby June and whatever, then I get sick and still have a 3 and a 4-year-old, and my mom took me to the hospital, and I literally remember I was like hunched over completely. I could not even stand up. And I walked to the front desk and they took me back. And like in the matter of hours, it was like I was literally dying. Like my body was just everything was like getting infected. Yeah. And, but, because I had a car accident, or I had a accident when I was a kid, and I fell off my deck and my spleen exploded into my body.
You're like 10-foot deck.
Really, really high deck. And my spleen exploded into my body. I had surgery when I was 10. But I have spleens growing all over inside of my body because of this traumatic injury and how spleens are vascular. So they cling to stuff and grow. So I'm telling you that because they didn't know why I was so sick. Like they were like, oh, is this from your, like, I said I had a miscarriage, but this doesn't seem like whatever. I don't know. And so they did a CAT scan and they found they're like, we're calling an oncologist because you are riddled with masses. Like your intestines, everything has stuff everywhere. And at the time I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. So not only was I'm like grieving the loss of a baby, the stress of a 3 and 4-year-old kids. I'm sick in the hospital. Seth's at work. My mom's got the kids. And then they're telling me you have masses all over you. And on top of that, I'm writhing in pain at this point. And my abdomen is like swollen. Like it was unbelievable how like swollen my stomach was. Like it looked pregnant, which was like insult onto injury. So they did a scan and they figured out, they did the scan, which required me to stay in the hospital, so that they could do more tests. And they're like, we need to do a nuclear medicine test on you. So, first they gave me antibiotics for the infection. Because they're like, you definitely have an infection that needs to go away. You need to be on drip, like IV antibiotics for 48 hours. So I knew I was going to be in the hospital for 2 days, which is stressful. Then, you have like painkillers and all these other things. And then they're like, we need to figure out what those masses are because probably they're cancer, right? So they, whatever they did, they were like, we're going to give you a nuclear medicine test. So they inject you with nuclear medicine. It's radioactive dye, right? And they put you on this scanner to detect the radioactive dye. But they gave me the wrong one. And so I was in like the 3rd day of being in the hospital, 2 days of IV antibiotics.
They made a mistake. Wrong one, like it was
on the error. 3rd day, and gave me the wrong nuclear medicine. And then they did it again the next day. with the right nuclear medicine. And I had to stay in the hospital for like 4 days.
Yeah.
And I remember I was so mad at them. And I'm like, I need to go home. Like, I have kids and I cannot be here anymore. Like, let me go home. I'll come back. And they wouldn't let me. And I knew it was like, this is costing me money. Like, this is costing us money. And so then they did the nuclear medicine test and it revealed the spleens, and they scanned or all that stuff.
And the masses weren't
cancer. They were
the
spleens.
Right.
And but so like I got, the infection went away. I did the scans or whatever, and then I remember like a month later getting a bill in the mail for like $10,000 because of that. And I was like, I literally had 2 kids before this and it cost us almost nothing, partially because we were poor.
Right.
And then I get a $10,000 bill from the hospital.
Right.
And I had to contest it and be like, look, they kept me longer because of these medicine things and like giving me the wrong one. And I just remember sobbing when I opened the bill.
Yeah.
Because I was like, this is too many things.
Right.
Like, it's too many things for me to handle.
It was too many things.
And, tiny kids and a marriage that's not super great. And, that was so stressful.
Yeah.
And, but then kind of moving past all of that stuff, it was really hard because I felt like I couldn't make you feel it.
Right.
Like I couldn't make you, I guess what I wanted you to see, I wanted to see you be as sad as I was, and you just weren't. And I didn't know why. And I didn't know how to process that, because not only did I lose the baby, I cost us all this money, and it was in the hospital, and I don't know, like I wanted to see you have sadness that matched mine almost, not like in a weird way, but like that's what I was expecting, and I didn't get any of that, which that sounds really weird, but that is exactly what I wanted. Like I wanted you to cry about it, and you like never did.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's very normal we want like people that are close to us to feel or at least mirror the pain that we're going through, so we don't feel like we're alone, kind of thing. And I don't know what, I mean, you can talk about like mirror neurons and being on the same page and like we're going through this together kind of thing. And there wasn't a lot of that because, as what I was saying before, I wish that I'd done so many things differently. Look up what it is like to go through a miscarriage. How can I support my partner in this way? And because of family of origin stuff, I literally didn't know what to do. So sometimes that ends up not doing anything, right? Which is the absolute worst thing that you could do if you were going through something like this or other very difficult things. I didn't know how to make sense of everything, and I was processing it in my own brain, and I remember that time. And I think these are the types of things that people need to talk about. It's not just a miscarriage, it's all the crap that can happen after a miscarriage, right? And we've processed through all that stuff over the years, and we have come to a point. I'm sorry, do you want to continue to share your narrative around that?
Yeah, well, another thing I was going to say too is that with young kids, it's like it's not that you can't grieve, but it makes it so much harder because like 3-year-olds don't care when you're crying. Like they don't. Right. And especially a 3 and a 4-year-old who are like fighting over something. You just like your brain is pulled away from the grieving process so repeatedly that it's like, and even the connection process, like you and I just connecting over whatever, not necessarily you just grieving, but like us being able to connect was made that much more complicated by having little kids to take care of.
Yeah.
And a job and, you know, all of that stuff. But I did want to talk about sort of the fear that came after that, because someone mentioned it in the comments where we got pregnant with Hattie after that. Like, Hattie was born in 2012, so not too long after that we got pregnant again. And it was so scary to be pregnant for that pregnancy. It was like every day I would be like, oh no, I'm gonna lose the baby. And every day she got bigger and bigger, and we knew it was a girl, and we were so excited because we only had boys. And it was like, what if today is the time that it happens? And oh my gosh, what if this thing or whatever what if I get the flu? Because I remember like getting sick and being like, please God, don't let me lose the baby, because it just feels like, it doesn't feel like it is, it's like your human body is like the vessel in which this little thing is living, and if your body gets messed up by a illness, then I have no control. I can't stop that from happening.
So the fear and the anxiety and even the PTSD after, and I guess nobody talks about this, having a kid or getting pregnant after a miscarriage and getting your hopes up, and you know how it felt to get your hopes up and then being let down. And you know, we've talked with couples who have had multiple miscarriages, so they experience that over and over. And
we know, I mean, we have friends that have lost babies
even later term than that, and
like due date term, and it's like unthinkable, you know. And it's so that, and I don't want to cause anxiety for anybody, but that was something going, and that's actually one of the reasons it's like I don't even want to have another kid now. I want more kids, like we've always talked about that, but the fear of miscarriage is so strong in me, like the fear of something can go wrong, and because it made me so sick, it was doubly terrifying. It wasn't just that I lost a baby. I lost a baby and then had a cancer scare, and then had like medical issues, had to pay the bills, but also I was like deathly ill. And that kills people. That actually kills people. And it was terrifying, you know, to think like I could have literally died. And so there was like trauma, I feel like, sort of stacked up emotionally and financially and just
and physical, obviously.
And so I wanted to address that because like Elizabeth didn't talk about it in that way. And I think their experiences, I can't speak to their experiences, but we got a lot of feedback from listeners saying like, this was really important. Thank you so much for sharing it. Thank you for bringing the topic up. But we want to talk about it more and sort of share our journey more. And I don't know. I just think it's so important to talk about these things. And then another thing that's a really weird phenomenon that happens. It happened a lot, especially like a few years back when the kids were littler, but like I would count my kids, like I'd be getting ready to go and I'd be like, okay, and I would literally look, I would be like, wait, who are we missing? And it was like the most sad, because I wasn't doing it on purpose. I wasn't like, oh, 1, 2, 3, you know, it was just like my brain knows that I have a child somewhere, which is so trippy. My body literally knows. And actually Pamela was telling me that mothers carry fetal, from every fetus that is produced in their body, they like carry the fetal stem cells like in their brain.
Really?
They can find the fetal, I'll have to look it up, but literally every kid you give birth to as a mother, they can find the kid's DNA in your, like, I think it's in your brain or your body. I know, which crazy. Is so weird.
I didn't know. So you actually do carry part of that child when you miscarry, right? And it's I imagine it being similar to someone who has gone through an amputation. They get ghost pains, like phantom pains, and that's so it's so strong and it's so real. And I think there's this even places a higher importance to like honor those miscarriages. even if you didn't name them, if they didn't have a name or not, we'd already chosen a name for June. And that's just so important because we can't just forget about these things, like you said. And now we carry the memories, but now we viscerally and physically carry the memories of that. So it's important, like a memorial for someone who was literally here and we knew and had passed away a year later or whatever. You celebrate those that passed, right?
And there's another, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead.
So there's other stuff I wanted to mention as well, but one is I'll share a song at the end of this. I wrote a song for June and the kids know it and they sing it and stuff, but so I'll put that on the end of this episode and make it available and stuff. But another thing too, which is really hard and I wasn't anticipating, was how much it affected our kids. Like, it still affects them. Yeah. And Hattie was born after June would have been born. And Hattie talks about June because the boys will talk about June and they hear me sing the song. And it's like, I'm not trying to like put this onto my kids and be like, think about this all the time. Right. But like every once in a while, our son, who's 9, will just break down and be like, I miss June. He never met June, so he can't miss June. But he
was 3.
Yeah, he was 3.
And it's not the type of thing where we, like you were saying,
we're not talking about it like all the time.
Put it in the kids' heads, and it's important that you be sad about this. And
not at all.
It's not that thing. Like, it's like the beautiful thing where kids sometimes, because they're so young and their just brains are malleable and their imaginations are just beautiful, and they don't have as many limits as we do as adults. They've really honored June and
they will draw pictures. Hattie will draw pictures of what she thinks June looks like and them playing together and
so that's real. And I believe that is a good thing. It normalizes things for our children. It normalizes mommy and daddy talking about these things and still processing and honoring and being very, very respectful to that. And my granny mom, my mom's mom, passed away this year in September, and that was one of the first deaths in my family that have been really, really significant to me. Like one of my first real experiences with
like a close relationship
loss. Yeah. And that was in September. And then, as Melanie said, June miscarried and towards the end of October. And I think once you go through a certain amount of things, you look at things differently. And there was this story that I shared it with you, and I talked to my mama and everything about it. And Melanie had, I think, taken the kids to school and then went on a walk with our neighbor. Yeah. And I was still here. I hadn't left for work yet. And it was like a sunny day. And sometime in October 31st or November,
it was right
2nd
before
or
Halloween.
Something
it was
like there. Yeah.
The 20th.
And I was getting ready for work, and I came and I was making a coffee, and literally all the kids had left. I was the only person in the house, and this is the only time that it's ever happened. I audibly heard a little girl say "Daddy," and I stopped what I was doing, and I was like, wait a minute, are the kids here? They left. And I looked around and nothing was there. And I was like, okay, I know that just happened, and it's not like now we're talking about ghosts or anything like that. It's not that. It's like it was right around the time when she passed, and it doesn't have an explanation. It doesn't have to have an explanation. But it was so, like, it happened, and it was real, and I heard it, right? And it was just amazing, or just not amazing, but really important, I guess. And then I started talking, like, of course, I didn't hear anything back after that, but just started talking and like, hey, babe, it's okay. Daddy's here, I mean, that's so sad. Daddy's here, and it was okay, right? And
yeah, there's something really weird in that where it's like it sounds so weird, like it's just like what are you talking about, right? But when you're in that situation and you legitimately think, oh, my child is talking to me, like it is so different. And too, like we talked about in a different episode, like we've had a lot of death this year, like of really important people in our lives, and it just like, this is gonna sound off topic for a minute, but like my neighbor, who is my best friend, her sister died when she was little, and she was resuscitated and brought back to life, and she like went to heaven. She talks about it, and she said, and I mean, believe whatever you want, but this is her story. She's like, heaven is right there. It's not far away. You could like reach out and touch it, and everything is like, you close your eyes and you're in it. It's right there. And that just was so weird to me when she said that, because there have been times when I promise I hear June's footsteps, and I don't know, there's something really like, I feel so many different thoughts about it. It feels sad. It feels weird. I feel dumb. I also feel kind of scared, but I'm also like, I really want that to be my baby. I want that to be the voice of my child or whatever, or to know that.
Also you feel happy.
Yeah. Like there's this sort of like, I get something, like I don't know how to explain it, but it really impacted our kids a lot more than I thought, and has continued to impact our kids. Like we think June was a girl. We don't know, but Hattie doesn't have a sister, and she talks about it. And but so I just wanted to talk about that and share that from our experience, because it isn't talked about, and I don't think I had ever heard miscarriage spoken about. It just felt so clinical whenever I would hear about it. Like, oh, it's a thing that happens. It's like having a twisted ankle.
It's a procedure.
Yeah.
It's not a person, right?
It's not a process. It's not a relation. Like, you won't feel bad about it. You'll just be sad for a little bit and get some medicine. I don't know. I mean, I just didn't think about it. And, and I've heard several women that are much older than me talk about how you kind of, or for them at least, you feel like, you're missing a kid. Like, that kid, there's a spot where it's empty, like in your heart, in the room, in the family, like you can feel it, not all the time, and that's the sense I get. Like every once in a while I'll be getting all the kids in the van, and I'll look like, wait, and then it just like a ton of bricks. It just like crushes your heart when you go, oh, I'm looking for a child that isn't here.
So I think one of the most important things about this is remember to honor that and be respectful, and it's okay. Like it's helpful. Grieving looks different for every single person ever, right? And it's a process. It can take as long as it needs to, and it take it as short as it needs to, right? So be respectful. Remember it in whatever way is appropriate for you and your partner, or for yourself, or for whatever. I think that's can
I say something really quickly? Sorry. I do want to say too that for me it's like it's a process that changes. Like this has been almost, I don't know how many years, like 8 years.
6 or 7 years.
Yeah, 7. And at some point I thought, oh, this will be done. That'll be done. Right? Like you won't think about it anymore, whatever. Not that I even consciously thought that. I just sort of imagined it wouldn't hurt so bad than whenever.
Yeah.
But it's like an unfolding of a thing, and it's triggered again by other events. Like if a friend loses a child, or if a friend gets pregnant and has complications, it brings up like all this, my own anxiety, like, oh my gosh, what if this happens?
Right.
Or what if that happens? And so it's, I guess I want to just make it clear that in our experience, or for me anyway, it's not very cut and dry. It's not very clean. No. It's like, it comes back in weird waves. And as you can tell, like it's so sad and raw right now even. And I feel like it shouldn't be.
It's okay that it is.
Yeah. And it's okay.
It's okay. Like whatever it looks like for you is, or for us, it's okay.
Yeah. Right? And I have to give that same grace to the kids. Like, they probably feel really weird that they cry for June sometimes.
Right. But it's okay.
Or whatever. And it's okay though. Like,
and I think, you know, that quote that we said a couple of weeks ago in a show, things don't go away. They come up in more
they come up in
ways
when you it's something like when you bury or anxiety or something.
Well, something it's like when injuries or whatever aren't processed and they're buried, they come up in more ugly and exacerbated ways, like right?
Destructive ways.
And yes, in destructive ways. And this isn't a thing where like, oh well, we didn't process that and now it's coming up. You can still have grieving feelings around it, like, oh, that reminded me of this and I feel sad. That's okay. That's just a normal thing. You know, it's not like you get happy once and you're never going to get happy again from like seeing a friend that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
It's a recurring thing. It's a normal range of emotions. So this isn't like that it hasn't been processed. You know, maybe it's just a very diluted process. It's it's not gonna leave us, right? We're never gonna forget it, and that's okay. Let yourself feel what you need to feel around that, and let's normalize this more and continue the conversation.
And I want to say too, for I've experienced with friends 2 different, death in general, I guess, but like 2 friends of ours who had like really late term miscarriages, like very traumatic, and I wanted to like love them as well as I could through that, because it's such a complicated and hard thing. And I think as a friend, when someone else is going through this and you're just the friend, it's important to remember, I think anyway, that they lost a baby and they are not trying to forget about that baby.
Right.
They are not trying to not talk about that baby. They are not trying to not like process and grieve. So all of that to say, like, don't be afraid of how uncomfortable that's going to be. Like I remember with one of our friends, it was so sad, and I went and visited her and she was just alone in this like dark, like all the lights off, just completely mourning. And I knew that she would be like, I knew that that's what she was going to be like. You know, they basically lost a full-term baby and had to cremate it and do all of these things that are just horrific to think about. But think about doing that alone without friends to help you walk through it, without being able to like scream out and cry out and be just all the things and have all the feelings and communicate them all. So I would just encourage you, if you know someone, especially a dad who's going through this, who's like, talk to them, ask them if they're okay, ask them if they want to talk. If they say no, you don't have to talk about it, but just don't shy away from honoring that loss. Like, it's a huge
honoring
deal.
That loss. And I think being brave enough to be okay with awkwardness. You know, I think sometimes with loss in any case, or just awkward things, I've found to just be, if you can, be brave and do it. Push yourself out of your comfort zone and serve your friend, right? It's not about you. Oh, I feel weird, or should I do this, or should I do that? No, don't make it about you. Make it about your friend, your partner, your family members that go through things like this. It's an exercise in putting yourself out there to serve your friend, and if you do it out of service, then that's a good thing. Yeah,
and you can look up like different ways to talk to people through grief, because there are different things. There are helpful things to say and non-helpful things to say, and we can hopefully find some resources and share those. I just think it's really important that we know how to walk with people through these experiences, because it really does happen very frequently.
But it happens every day, just like people are born every day. So thank you for sharing again. You know, I think what we've said on this podcast, it helps us to do this podcast. We do a lot of processing, obviously, through the podcast. So thank you for listening, and we hope that we continue to provide value for you. So thanks, Melanie. Good job.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay. You guys hit us up. Thanks.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet baby June on the edge of the moon, it's alright, my dear. Sweet baby June on the edge of the moon, don't you cry, my dear. No, I never kissed your cheek or held you close to me, but that doesn't mean you don't mean everything to me. Sweet baby June, gone to heaven too soon, it's alright, sweetheart, 'cause it's only the sky and the earth and time that keeps us apart. No, I never kissed your cheek or held you close to me, but that doesn't mean you don't mean everything to me. And my body's supposed to be your army, supposed to be your army, supposed to be your army, supposed to be my body's supposed to be your army, supposed to be your army, supposed to be your army. Sweet baby June on the edge of the moon, in the back of my mind, I hear your steps and I look for your love, but I cannot find. No, I never kissed your cheek or held you close